What job should marketing get done in a company?
I think the biggest job to be done for marketing is you've. So I think a lot of people think about it as like marketing is built for brand awareness, like make people aware of your brand so that they come in and when they're ready to buy, they'll buy from you. But I think it's a level deeper than that. I think brand awareness is part of it, but I think what it really is brand preference because like you want people to be aware of your brand, but you really want them to prefer your brand because when people enter into a sales situation, when you're evaluating any solution for anything that you're going to buy, whether that's B2C or B2B, you have a few ideas of brands in your head every single time. It's like if you're buying shoes, you're like, I'm going to look at Nike, I'm going to look at Adidas, I'm going to look at Puma. And you're going to look at one of those three. So the idea for marketing is to be one of those three companies. You want to be one of those three that people prefer so that when they go deeper down the funnel, they're already like starting with your company as a potential answer for whatever their problem is. So I think it's both of those things. Like you need them to be aware of it, but that's not enough. You can't stop there. You have to also make sure that they think your company is, if you're selling shoes, cool enough to wear. If you're selling business software, then it needs to be like smart enough to buy and use and useful enough that you can actually make the business case for it.
That's Mark Rogers. He's the director of content marketing at Freshpaint. Freshpaint is a healthcare privacy platform that helps marketing teams run analytics and advertising while preventing the sharing of protected health information with non-HIPAA compliant tools. Mark has over a decade of experience leading marketing and content for organizations and within agencies. In this episode, we talk about why marketing's job is to be the preferred solution for your target audience, where SEO and content marketing are headed, and why empathy paired with changing your mind and actions is so critical right now. A fun aside, I met Mark during an interview process back in 2024 where he actually passed on me. Thankfully, I left a decent impression because we've stayed in touch ever since, and I was so grateful to get him on this podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode, but before we get back to it, run the intro. Welcome to On Marketing, a show to help you think more strategically about marketing and life. I won't tell you what to think, I'll help you improve how you think. I'm Jordan Ogren, a marketing strategist with 9 years of experience and a podcast host for the last 4 years. This episode was recorded on December 2nd, 2025. All views shared are the individual views of the host and guests, not those of their employers or associate organizations. This show is for informational purposes, not professional advice or guidance. Thank you for being here. I've yet to hear that. The preference, like being preferred. So how did you come to that? Because clearly that's not something I hear a ton about, but at the end of the day, to your point, we have a short list every time we think of X, Y, or Z. And if you're not preferred or on that short list, what was the realization? Was it past experiences or was it just personally like I have in my head? So then that kind of made you start to shift of like marketing needs to also drive this being preferred.
Yeah, it was, I can't even remember when this was. It was years ago, but there's a stat I read somewhere about like 90% of buyers have three companies in mind when they enter a buying cycle, and they end up choosing one of those three companies like an overwhelming majority of the time. So it's like, all right, that's where it kind of triggered for me. Like brand awareness isn't quite enough. It's like we need them to be aware, but then also like when they're ready to buy, to want to buy, like that's the brand they prefer to buy from. A good example of this is like SEO software. Like before I got far in my career, I learned everything I could from like Moz and Ahrefs and SEMrush and like those companies. So when I was ready to buy SEO software, like Moz was the choice for me because I was like, these guys get it, they're cool, that's the one I want to work with. And that was like, I looked at the others quickly, but it was like Moz is the one I'm going to buy. So that was kind of like the anecdote that backs up the data for me personally, that like that's how I experienced it. So I try to approach our marketing in a similar lens.
Yeah, and for me, my mind goes to that for brand awareness, it can be kind of generic. Like we just want more people to know about us, or maybe you can get specific on who. But when you're trying to be the brand, the preferred brand, you have to kind of probably think a little bit more of like, why would they prefer us over this one? And you get like, talk to me maybe about the differences in how you approach your marketing when you're more focused on being that preferred brand versus let's just build brand awareness, which can at times be like generic or kind of like too high level to actually move the needle.
I think that's exactly it. Like brand awareness, absolutely useful, absolutely part of it. But like just because someone is aware of my brand, like you've heard the name Freshpaint maybe, like you're aware of it, but that doesn't actually like do anything. What we need is like you to understand the problem that we solve. So it's like that level deeper. You got to help people understand here's the problems that we solve, whether you're ready for it now. So you got to educate people on the problems, and then you have to educate them on the solutions. It's like marketing 101, right? But I think it's like something that a lot of people seem to forget when it's like when we focus too much on the top of the funnel or even too much on the bottom of the funnel. There's like that middle of the connection where preference lives that you have to focus.
I love that. And I definitely will be doing more reading and thinking about this kind of thought where, yeah, it's almost like that next step from awareness. You need the awareness or you need that base, but then it's this next step of how do we become a preferred, software or service or tool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What is something, Mark, that you are talking loud about right now in marketing and brand and anything around business that maybe others just aren't talking as loud about, or they're talking about in a different way? Does anything come to your mind that you're just a little bit obsessed about or talking loud about?
So the one that comes to mind for me, and this is extremely company dependent, but for me, I feel like SEO is like, I gotta make sure I phrase this right because I don't want people to like come after me and be like he hates SEO. I don't hate SEO. I think it's not right for a lot of companies, and a lot of companies still invest in it anyway. So like Freshpaint, for example, we sell to very high, very high level healthcare marketers, big contract values, big organizations. If we're focusing on like every keyword related to that under the sun, then we're optimizing for keywords that like our decision makers aren't searching for. So like my big thing is like I don't want to invest a ton in SEO. I think it's a small component of what we need to do, and I've been beating that drum since I joined Freshpaint two and some years ago at this point. And it's just like when I first say it, it makes a lot of people angry, like turns a lot of people off. They're like, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But I think when you really dig into your customer profile, you dig into how they buy, you dig into where they learn, all these things, it draws you down the path of like, all right, here's how I need to build a marketing strategy, a content marketing strategy specifically. And for us, SEO has just never been a huge component of that. So it's been an area that I haven't focused. So I don't know, might be a little like maybe a little bit of a hot topic, but that's I think that's the big one for me.
Yeah, no, Mark, I think it's something I've thought a lot about. Currently, I work in a company that kind of sells social media and content, and I think there's just certain businesses that do better with it. And I think it's almost like ignorant to not realize that. And I think the same would be true with SEO. There's clearly selling shoelaces or something that's a very low commodity type thing. You want to be that first option, or you want to figure out how to. But yeah, for someone, and I think too, like sometimes we don't think of how we buy. So then we like implement a strategy, but then we realize like I would never buy based off of just clicking an SEO, or like I want to learn deeper. And yes, SEO can be a doorway into it. How do you think about maybe in totality of like the industries, companies where like SEO would succeed? Or do you think too that like SEO needs to evolve to, I don't even know the new term of AEO or like answer engine optimization. Talk to me in large of like which companies maybe would do well with SEO, or like where do you see SEO succeeding? Or does it need to be the next kind of iteration of SEO in whatever that AI-esque answer?
It's probably like not a blanket statement for like when it's right and when it's wrong for companies. I think it really depends on your buyers and like the biggest thing I would say is like spend a lot of time talking to the people that buy your product. Like a lot of time. Don't just listen to sales calls. Like that's super useful, but like actually sit down and talk to these people and learn what they think through and what they buy. But then also like be honest with yourself. Like if you've built your career on SEO and you jump into a new company and it doesn't feel right, or like you're talking to people and you're like, maybe I don't, like, don't be afraid to go a different direction. Like if you don't think, I think that's the biggest thing that people miss out on is like they know their playbook and they're going to rerun that play because it's safe, it's comfortable, you've done it before. But like at the end of the day, are page views from SEO going to do anything for your pipeline? Like if that's what you're evaluated against, that's where you need to focus. So I think that, I mean, I kind of talked around it a little bit, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I love it. And maybe just like in totality, do you think that SEO is in a evolving place, even like the effective SEO needing to be different? Or how do you think about, because I'm not in that world, but I'm just like, I read a lot on it, and it seems that like SEO is changing in the way we go about, and even too like search engine optimization as a core term. Like TikTok technically can be now an SEO channel where my wife goes there for sourdough recipes or whatever, but that's so nuanced of like, we're being searched there, but like that's not on Google. How do you think about the evolution of SEO? Do you think it is in this kind of phase of evolving to something new, or do you think we just keep calling things different things and it's the same core truth?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest. Like I think everyone's all talking about AEO right now, and I think there's something to that for sure. Like you want to make sure that, I think this gets back to your buyer though. You want to make sure you're where they're at, so you got to understand what they're doing. If they are using AEO tools or ChatGPT or something like that to find you, then like, all right, we got to figure out how we show up there. So that might be a consideration. It's definitely evolving to some degree, but at the end of the day, like whether the person's using ChatGPT or Google search or whatever it is, what they're doing there is searching a problem, trying to find a solution either way. So like the marketing you create, the content you create should be focused around how do we help our buyers solve those problems. And like I think at the end of the day, and I'm probably being a little naive with ChatGPT, but like at the end of the day, I think if you're doing a good job of like creating content that solves the actual problems your buyers are experiencing, you're going to be relatively successful either way. So I think foundationally similar, probably a lot of nuanced differences that I don't fully understand, and I'm sure people will come after me and be like, "You're an idiot, man. No SEO, no AEO. What are you doing?" But I
think maybe the point that I'm trying to hint at is that it maybe affected other things, like the fact where I read this book, They Ask You Answer. This was a very long time ago by Marcus Sheridan, potentially, and it's just like write answers, blog posts to simple questions. But like now, in my opinion, chat has destroyed that kind of model, because I can just quickly go on like, what is content marketing? How do I do content marketing in my chat, where I'm not going to go to these pages? So maybe it's changed like how we create content, or not focusing so much on like, just like, I don't want to call it dumb content, but sometimes it can just be like overtly simple, where now chat just solves that. So then your content has a new job to be done, quote unquote. But what is that job to be done? And to your point, it's different every company, where then maybe SEO or approaching it makes sense. I just think it's fascinating, this point in which we're kind of at. Content marketing, SEO, all of it seems like it's changing, or just maybe shedding and just getting a new skin or a new name.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. Like the kind of like 101 level content that like a lot of people have done before, and like I did a lot of it in my past. Like ChatGPT can answer those basic questions, so like probably don't need to spend a lot of time there. At the same time, like ChatGPT can also very easily create that content that answers those questions. So like, if you're spending hours and hours and hours writing like a project I used to do, relative, like a playbook I used to run relatively commonly, was like, let's build up our version of a Wikipedia, which is like a great like 101 level educational resource for whoever our buyer was, and like worked really well. But ChatGPT can replicate that. It can write it easily now. It can also just answer that easily for you. So if you're spending a ton of hours into something like that, I feel like probably not going to get very far. It's not going to have the impact that you expect, or that it used to.
That makes sense, and goes to your point of like, I don't want to say you said burn the playbooks, but you just can't use that old playbook. You need to update them. So that makes a lot of sense. What is something, Mark, before we kind of get to the fun life topic, what is something in marketing, and you might have already touched on it, but something you believed a year ago, 2 years ago, that today, maybe you don't believe something anti that, but you believe something different? AK, what have you kind of changed your mind on in regards to marketing in the last 2-3 years?
I think there's an AI answer to this somewhere too, but when AI first hit the scene, like my initial reaction was like, this is gonna like take all of our jobs. It can do everything. It's freaking amazing. And for a while, I spent a lot of time figuring out like, all right, how can I use AI to essentially take my job? I think where it's gone from there is a little bit different. I think it's extremely useful tool, but I don't think it's quite at the place where it can take our jobs yet, which is a good thing. So like, I think a lot of what it does is like give you good superpowers. It can speed things up, but it doesn't necessarily like create the impact that I thought it would 2 years ago, which is probably a good thing. Maybe a lot of people want to hear that. It's just been it's a fun tool to experiment and play around with and learn from and do a lot with, but doesn't quite have like that profound impact that I was hoping it would.
I think there's a quote from someone smarter than me that says we kind of underestimate the long-term impact of new technological and overestimate the immediate impact, which would be that point of like everybody was, yeah, AI is going to take our jobs, but maybe we're not thinking long-term of like it will probably hugely change like the internet kind of did to the way we work, where everything is more so digitally and you don't need fax machines and some of these things. Yeah, no, that makes
yeah. I mean, I think long term, like, still probably huge potential for it, and still a huge amount of growth for it, especially in marketing. I think like right now today, it's there's still a lot of work to be done. So let's do the work, and let's lean on ChatGPT to help with that. So
yeah, I feel bad for anybody who totally changed their career to like a prompt engineer and it just didn't work out.
That was one of those things that like I spent a long time being like, yeah, I'm gonna figure out like I'm gonna write the best prompts. I can be perfect at this, and then like
people were saying that if you didn't, you were gonna lose your job and stuff. So
yeah, and now it's like, well, this I don't know, didn't quite have the impact I expected, but still a good learning experience. I learned a lot, did a lot. So
all right, Mark, are you ready to go to maybe the more important topic of life?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, what is, just for you, because I know that everybody has their own kind of viewing on what is the purpose of life, but for you, what is the job that you're hiring life to do? AKA, when you're done with life, how do you define that was a life well lived?
The answer here is kind of very obvious because I have an 18-month-old son. So like for me, it all comes back to my kid and my next kid coming. Like that's the thing for me right now. Everything, I get so much joy out of spending time with my son, and hopefully will from my next kid as well. So I think that's really what it all comes back to for me. Like it's given me a lot of purpose, a lot of drive, a lot of like even energy in ways I didn't expect.
So building that family on that deathbed, or when you're done, looking back at the family, the grandchildren, all of these things that give you joy and stuff, then that would lead to a well-lived life. I love that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny for me to say that because even like, I don't know, 10 years ago, I couldn't see myself loving it as much as I do right now. It's funny. So it's changed a lot. It's been a great journey.
I love that. A question that I constantly ask people who answer in a way that you did, where it's like about family or about those that we love. My question is how do we then ensure, and not at all trying to say right or wrong, but like there's probably others without family or others that don't have those. How do we ensure that those individuals aren't lost in the gap, where if I drive down the street and I see a random person, I don't have any feeling. But if it's my brother, I'll pull over and be like, yo, what are you doing? Come on, get in. So for me, I've thought of that same thing where I look at my daughter and I'm like, oh, I love you so much and I want to give you all. But like, for me, I have some thoughts of like, but also like, what if she sees me loving others, and like, while that could make her jealous, there's also this thought of like, oh, we have unlimited amount of love and we can give it. How do you balance both? Like, you don't want to be terrible to your family and loving others outside your home, but like, is there a badness of just only solely focusing on your family when there's the whole world out there? How do you balance that? Or do you just say, hey, right now it's family, young children, I can only focus on that? I totally understand if that is your answer.
I try to look at this through like, how do I want my son to see me? So like, yes, I'm focused a lot on him right now, but I also try to focus on other people as well. I try to be a good friend. I try to be a good husband. I try to be a good coworker. Like I want my son to see all of those sides of me, because like that for me, like if he grows up to be a better person than me, that's a huge win. So like, I think like a lot of the things I think and do and act on right now are all like making sure that I'm showing him the positive way, the right way in my view, at least, of how to like handle things, how to work through situations. So it's like, I mean, like you know this, your kid's always watching you. They're always seeing what you're doing. Like they're picking up on the little things, and it becomes even more obvious every month that they're picking up on the little things you're doing. So that's kind of the way I view it. It's all through like, what do I want him to see? What do I want him to be? So
model those things.
Yeah. And I'm certainly not perfect at it. I'm sure there's times that I'm showing and doing things that I don't want him to do, but like try to do the best I can for the most part, I guess.
What is something, and this is definitely a personal question as you're a bit further along the journey of having a child, what is something you wish maybe you knew at the start of having a child or even into it that maybe would help you live out some of those things you just talked about, being a better model or some of those, or maybe something that doesn't matter that you thought mattered so much back when? I'd love to glean some insights here.
One of the things that like I'm surprised, like I've always been a patient person, and I'm not saying like I'm impatient with my son, but it's like very easy to see how like patience wanes quickly when it's like not something's not working the way, or my son's not doing something the way I expected it to. Like it's like that side of things has been a little more difficult than I expected, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the point of the modeling is that there's a higher bar of not losing your patience, because then that is modeled, or that's kind of soaked into the child of like, oh, it's okay to, almost like culture in an organization, like, oh yeah, I saw dad like have an outburst, like that's normal, where if you're able to model not. So yeah, definitely I feel similarly, patience is like that. I wouldn't have called myself a patient person. I try to be. So I'm not, a little different than you, of like maybe I'm growing in patience versus like you're like, oh wow, look at the differences that patience kind of in certain areas, a lot of it in other areas wanes quickly. Yeah, I feel that.
It's been for me, it's been eye-opening in that side, because it's just like it's something that I've always been like, oh, I've got this locked down, I'm so good, I'm so patient, like I can handle anything. And then you just like see like, oh wait a minute, it's like, all right, maybe I'm not, like maybe I need to like slow down a little bit in these situations, or like maybe my impatience is like affected by my stress at work or something like that. Like there's things going on that's shifting my perception,
I have a question that I ask mostly almost every guest. It's based on this movie Inception. So if you haven't seen it, I will give a quick brief. Essentially, these people go into people's dreams, incept usually nefarious or kind of not good ideas, so then they sell their company or they give a share to somebody. I'm going to ask the opposite, more of a benevolent angle, as if you could go in the minds of every human on the planet Earth. So think outside of marketing, more on life, and you could incept an idea. So tomorrow, every human on this planet wakes up and the idea you incept, we live out as our own. What idea do you incept in the minds of every human?
It's something about empathy, something about like putting yourself in other people's shoes. I feel like there's not enough of that right now, where it's like, yeah, there's something there. I gotta workshop this a little bit, but like there just seems to be a major lack of that across everything right now. So if I could like force something into everybody else's mind, I'd be like, just think through the situation that person's in before you react to them, talk to them, speak to them, like. Or, if you see I think any situation, like just try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and understand where they're coming from before you make the snap judgments on this is how we should act, this is how we should handle things. Like people there's so much going on in the world, and I think if you view everything through your eyes only, and maybe this is because I spend a lot of time being a marketer and thinking about what other people want to do and talking to them about what they do, but like I think that's the big thing I would love to push on everybody right now is like empathy. Let's just all be a little more understanding of each other.
I think there's a quote, Stephen Covey, maybe seek first, understand, and then be understood. So I think that aligns somewhat of like, we kind of are always quick to judge, or we're not always having the slack or space to figure out or to allow someone to kind of share all the stuff going on in their life. Maybe give the benefit of the doubt could be like another angle of it. Like it's just so much stuff going on in people's lives. Just give people, like, if someone's late 5 minutes to your meeting, like it's all good. Life will go on. Be empathetic, be kind. Yeah, no, I love that. And I think your point's so valid that a lot of the world's issues are clearly stem from a lot of things, but I think it's a place of like the unwillingness to put ourselves in the shoes, or the inability actually, just because of religious or whatever, to even try to view the other person as human. So yeah, no, I think that would be a nice world to wake up to tomorrow, all living out of empathy.
I'd attach to that like empathy, and then like the openness to change your perception once you learn how that person views life, or the background they come from. Because like I think they're like two very closely intertwined things. Like you gotta be open to understanding that people come from different backgrounds, do different things, change their life based on different things. And like I think we're just too quick to judge and assume that the other person's wrong right now. So
yeah, no, I almost, my mind goes to empathy that leads to what is kind of like the thought, where if it leads to not compassion or some of those things, then really empathy is a useless tool. I mean, yes, it's valuable to put yourself in the other shoes, but if you're, to your point, not open to actually change my perspective or to see these people as humans, even if they don't maybe align with my religious views, but after talking with someone and seeing their humanity, I'm able to open and change. So I do think it's empathy paired with an active reframe or an active trying to restructure like my mindset around the world, where if I'm just empathetic without that, then it's almost like, I don't know the right word, of just like listening to someone's challenges, but then not caring at all, of like just accepting them. You're like, I was empathetic, I tried to put myself in my shoes, but then what happens after that? I love that.
Yeah, I think that's perfect framing. Really good framing.
I think your point about the marketers, I do think it does lead to be more empathetic. Like just naturally, it's like I need to, as Ann Hanley talks about, like I need to be able to write their diary for them, which means I need to understand them so well. So I think it's just fun, which is why this podcast is the way it's structured, of like, there's a lot of life things that bleed into our marketing and then kind of vice versa. So I love that. All right, Mark, final question. With everything changing, we touched on some of the AI, but more so around life, what do you hope in 10, 15 years is the same? So maybe it did leave with COVID, but what do you hope in 10 to 15 years we still have while everything else around us constantly changes? What is that one thing that you're like, I really hope we still have that?
I'm so anchored on our last conversation that I'm like about empathy and that whole topic that I'm like trying to, it'd be easy to say that. That's an easy answer. Like I hope that people still have empathy, but something that I still hope is the same is like, I think this ties back to what I was talking about AI before. Like there's a lot that is going to change from it. I think a lot of people are scared of like AI taking all of our jobs and everybody being laid off and everybody being unemployed and everybody like, essentially causing the end of society from AI. I don't think that's necessarily realistic, but I do hope that like one of the things that stays the same is that we all everybody's able to keep some sort of their job. They're able to adapt to it. So maybe that's like the part that I hope stays the same, like our ability to adapt to situations and figure out how to work with the technology that we're given, because it's freaking cool. I think there's a lot of cool technology out there. So like, I guess my answer is like, I hope that everybody's good at changing. I hope that's the thing that stays the same. We're all good at changing, but
I think historically the society has been decent. I mean, COVID even, we were able to change to stay at home. Now, while there's people who can argue positives and negatives for that, we were able to kind of change. So yeah, I do hope that we keep that resilience to change and lean into it, because like the computer and some of these things, they don't go away. We have to figure out how to use them for productivity, but also like satisfaction and joy for society. Yeah, I love that, Mark. It's a great answer.
I think it's a lot of times I think about like, so the Industrial Revolution came in and changed the way of life for everybody, but people adapted to it. They figured out how to work in this society, and it led to some good things like the 40-hour work week, for example. Weekends, it's all a result of the Industrial Revolution. So hopefully we're running through something similar like that now, and maybe in 15, 20 years, everybody will be working 4 hours a week and we'll all be hanging out, living a leisure life other than that. So
I love that. My mind sadly goes to all the new problems that are created by solving things. Like I know like a lot of, I'm reading a book right now about perfectionists, or it's around like dopamine and addiction. And it's like, we now are more bored than we've ever been, which leads to people using drugs or using pornography or these things where back in the day you work 17 hours. You were dead by the end of the day. You weren't going home and flicking through, whatever. So it is fascinating that, like, to your point, we need to constantly change, because as we solve one problem where it's like, we're only working 40 hours now, it's like, well, we have all this leisure time, and how do we use this productively versus getting into quote unquote trouble? So no, I love your final note here. I hope we stay resilient and able to change together for the greater good of all humans. No, I love that, Mark.
Yeah, well, I think that's it.
Thank you so much, man, for coming on. This was a great, fun conversation. I know I could probably go forever, so I appreciate you keeping it somewhat succinct for me.
Yeah, I loved it, Jordan. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
And this is the end of the podcast. What one idea or topic of conversation stood out to you today? Write it down, share it with a friend, post it on social. The main thing is take action. That's how we go from theory to mastery. We need to practice. We need to put it into practice. Thank you for listening and being here, and I hope you tune in next week.